So now we're going to retake that motion to nominate Kit Wise and Wendy Nicholas as members of the CRC so they can, among other things, serve on the Historic Structures Subcommittee. Would someone remake that motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Now, because Kit has to leave, I don't think you've had a meeting yet, but would you say what's behind this, Kit, and what your intentions are? You got to come off mute. There you go.
I'm having computer problems and everything's breaking up on me.
We can see you fine now. You look very distinguished.
Yeah, I don't know whether. Well, I'm going to a dinner meeting shortly.
You are freezing up a little bit.
Can't be here at this point. Yeah, and I've been having computer problems all day long. It may not be
Hey,
easy for
you want me to do it?
you better because and you're breaking up on me. It's part
Well,
of
okay. Well, Kit, first of all, I appreciate your being here with us and you and Wendy agreeing to do this. As I said at the meeting the last time, you and Wendy joined Jim Whiten and me at Duval's to volunteer your considerable expertise in the area of historic structures. That would be buildings, cemeteries, walls like at the head of Westport, and to ascertain what the impacts might be from climate change, which might take the form of things like sea level rise or other impacts, the invasive beetles, other things that might impact historic structures. Westport is a historic town. There are many historic structures. And so this is something we hadn't thought about when we first convened a couple of years ago. And it is something that's important to the character of the town. And you are, I've done a certain amount of work in historic structures. You have a nationwide reputation and expertise as an architect who's done countless restorations, not just in Westport, but all over. And so your expertise is almost unmatched. Wendy, you can say the same. She's worked for the National Trust for Historic Preservation. And Sean, the same. His lectures on historic walls, it's fascinating. So to have the three of you take a look at this is, another aspect of the character and assets of the town of Westport and what they might do. And as with agriculture or the other areas we're looking at, if we get a good report on this, it's going to be of tremendous interest to our neighboring towns. So thank you very much, Kit, both you, Wendy, and Sean, for looking at this important part of Westport. And so enjoy your dinner meeting, and we'll see you. We look forward to the work as you go along. The nice thing about having a subcommittee of only 3 is you'll probably get an awful lot of work done, not too many arguments with 3 people. So good luck. So thank you very much. So
okay. Yeah.
All right, so moving on to the agenda, which I hope everyone got. Thank you, Amy, for putting it together. The first item on the agenda is Serped's discussion with Helen on the Green Communities Program. Now, is that someone introducing you, Helen, or are you just taking this by yourself?
I can take it from here, John, no problem.
Okay, you're on.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Thank you for having me tonight and for just giving me some time on your agenda. I'm going to share my screen here and just go through a couple of slides. And these are kind of typically for folks who might have less familiarity with climate change and everything. I think some of these we can skip just because you guys know. I think I'm preaching to the choir here. Yes, SERPED is the regional planning agency for Southeastern Mass, and I am the manager of environmental planning. We have a few different work programs, and one that we're trying to expand into more fully is greenhouse gas and kind of climate pollution mitigation. There's a couple of programs that are ongoing at the moment. One's kind of looking at this from a regional level, but another way to look at it is at the kind of community level. So I just wanted to chat about net zero planning, the kind of current standard, and to see if, just to give you guys some things to think about if the town might want to partner with SERPED in the coming years on basically like a community greenhouse gas inventory that can lead to a net zero plan. So the term net zero is a little nebulous here. It can mean different things depending on the particular organization, but the general idea is that you're drastically reducing your greenhouse gas emissions and that you're trying to offset those by sources that aren't emitting, right? So why do this? I mean, there's a clear picture of a warming world. We've seen increases already. We have things that we can point to. They're observed. Of course, changes in temperature, precipitation, sea level rise, drought, wildfires, all of this we're seeing changes in. And the bottom line is that these changes, there's kind of no observational evidence that would support any credible natural explanations for this amount and this rate of warming. It's the human drivers are causing this effect. So why plan for net zero? There are definitely environmental benefits, especially minimizing long-term climate impacts and mitigating pollutants and air quality, providing better air quality. Public health benefits of reduced respiratory health disease, better physical health and mental health. Economic benefits, there's a whole new green economy to be tapped into here. Energy benefits, of course, reduced cost and a more resilient system. And then equity benefits in terms of hoping that we can move toward lower energy prices, and hoping that we can, get some folks into this kind of green economy. Where should you start? Well, kind of you have to set a baseline, and that's the function of the greenhouse gas inventory. So it accounts for all emissions within a specific geographic area, in this case, a municipal boundary within a given year. And again, you start with a baseline year, and then you're able to set targets against that baseline and identify future progress against it. And then also it's helpful in identifying the largest sources of emissions in your community so that you can target those areas specifically. What the current framework is in Massachusetts these days, the MAPC, our sister RPA up in the Boston region, developed a really great tool. It's a really nice starting point. And it breaks the greenhouse gas inventory down into 4 steps, and just some kind of background. It follows the basic level of methodology. It's kind of called the global protocol methodology, and there's various levels, and this is kind of at the basic level. So step 1, you set your parameters, and in this case, it's usually the municipal boundary, and then you set your base year. And the thing about the base year is that it really depends on the year for which there is complete data available. When MAPC put out this tool, that year of record was 2017, and something that we have to investigate is if we can get to a more recent base year. And for those of you who kind of are familiar with the greenhouse gas inventory space, there's scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 emissions. There are kind of some standard ways for describing what's generated, what emissions are within a boundary versus kind of indirect emissions that you're causing by consumption. There's these different kind of cutoff points and classifications. And so this method gets into scope 1 and scope 2, but does not get into scope 3. So you set your parameters, then you gather your data, And there's three main data categories that the inventory is calling for: stationary energy, so buildings, similar things. Also, energy from sectors like landscaping, right? So things that are causing emissions but are in construction, they're kind of confined to one. They're not on the roadway, but they're still emitting. Transportation, so of course that's cars, trains, all that good stuff, and then your waste sectors. And so what's interesting is that the MAPC tool, there's really two categories of data. There's that feeds into the inventory tool. And the tool is just a spreadsheet, right? So we're collecting all this data, we're putting it into a spreadsheet that has formulas and connections and all that good stuff, and then it's spitting out an inventory by sector. And so there are some data sets that feed into that are state or kind of federal or other aggregate sources. So that's really helpful because we can kind of pull regionally is maybe our intention for this work going forward. And so we're looking at things like state land use land cover data, this MOVES model that's used to estimate emissions from that landscaping and construction sector, Massachusetts vehicle census, RTA data for on-road buses, and then census data that can assist in estimating certain factors. One example is methane and nitrous oxide emissions from wastewater treatment. But then there's a whole other kind of suite of data that feeds into this tool that requires local information and investigation. So details, for example, on local green municipal aggregation program. Questions around, do you have access to complete heating oil consumption for residential, commercial, and industrial customers? And so there's kind of like, that would be the gold standard of data. But if not, it's okay. You're able to substitute census data to get a good estimate. We'll be looking for DPW data on municipal solid waste by method of disposal. So if things are going to a landfill versus incineration versus compost versus anaerobic digestion. And again, it's okay if not. You can estimate rates from statewide averages. Is there any local waste characteristic survey? So these are, kind of trying to show you how something's great, readily available. We can scoop them up at SERPED for the whole region. But no matter what we do, there's going to be some town-specific data and questions that we have to work out. Then basically, step 3 is to calculate the emissions. Like I said, it's that spreadsheet and everything gets input. And then what comes out is this % of total community-wide emissions by sector. So on-road, construction, solid waste disposal, railways, just all these different categories, totals and kind of percentages. And finally, step 4 is just make sure we document our methodology. What baseline did we choose? Did we deviate from the methodology at all? Who's going to shepherd this going forward? Where did we put all of this? That kind of good stuff. And then, with a baseline created, you can set an emissions target. And, we have the benefit here of Massachusetts and having had some targets set by an overall and by sector at the state level, which continue to get refined for each kind of benchmark year. And then once those emission targets are established, you can kind of start to work on your community net zero plan. And you can, again, MAPC put together this kind of net zero playbook tool in the sectors of emissions, buildings, clean energy supply, and climate smart zoning and permitting. So you can kind of work through that system, pick one of those to start on, pick all 4, try to tackle them, and create your community net zero plan. How are you going to achieve your target? So SERPED is funded through DOER on a 2-year cycle through a program called Regional Energy Planning Assistance, or REPA for short. And REPA, it lets us, in the past, we've limited ourselves to helping communities with their green communities reporting and competitive grant applications. And I understand that you guys have someone else in town who does that, and that's great. SERPED's very happy to have someone else do that. We support 13 communities, and come annual report time, it's a scramble as it is to make sure we're getting all of those completed. But what we're hoping to do next cycle in 2023 and 2025 is really to move into this GHG and net zero planning space. And so the next cycle is coming up. We're going to be putting in our grant application, quote unquote, for it probably in June. And when we do that, we go through a process of anticipating which towns and reaching out to towns to see who wants SERPED to serve as a technical assistance provider, and we execute an MOU. And we then just say, DOER is providing the funding to SERPED to help the town X complete Y. And now that REPA has opened up in the last cycle to this kind of net zero and GHG planning, we would love to be able to expand our capacity and complete some of these. So what we think we're going to be doing is going in for part of this next cycle and asking for a grant for kind of regional capacity building, which is a REPA category. And we can use that to really, like I said, look at, take the available data for the whole region from these sources where it's easy to do that, where we can do downloads and make sure we have them for each town. We can kind of give a region-wide look and effort to getting those data. And then with each individual town, we can declare to REPA that we're going to be preparing a community greenhouse gas inventory using that MAPC tool. And we can be funded for up to $3,000 per municipality, I think, to engage on some of these more local questions where we have to actually, we have to have some back and forth and some investigation about what's happening within the town and what information the town has or doesn't have. And then in a subsequent REPA cycle, once we kind of have the inventories figured out, we can move into that more kind of harder, like net zero planning. How are we gonna change what's going on now and meet our targets? So we are looking for kind of a pilot community. Our environmental team has broken down the SERPED region into kind of watershed basis. And so we're trying to get a volunteer from each of these subregions, and especially one that has an active climate committee or energy committee to see if anyone's interested in going through this greenhouse gas inventory process at the local level. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but and obviously no decision needs to be made immediately, but I just kind of wanted to give you guys a heads up that that's where we're trying to head. And we of course would be so excited if Westport wanted to collaborate with us on this going forward. So that's my contact information. And I'm happy to answer any questions or just have a chat about it.
Thank you, Helen. I know Jim Whiten has his hand up, but let me ask first of the planning department, Michael, have you guys formulated a position on this at all?
We have not talked about this prior to this meeting, no. Okay,
Jim Whiten.
I had a brief, I think, presentation by Helen of this at our last commission meeting, and I think that perhaps Westport could be interested, but it's going to be a hard sell. I think the grant proposal of $3,000 worth of help for SERPED, is that correct? To do the first part, I think it's going to take more than that. I mean, it's going to take a lot of effort by town employees to do that, and we've got a lot going on, and I'm not sure that at the end of the day, I hate to say this, what we're going to get out of it in the short term. I mean, long term, I know we all have to get to net zero, but we have to allocate resources from town to do this. So convince me we can do it without killing our people here.
Yeah.
Well,
I have a question to piggyback.
Who is that? Is that you, Constance?
Yeah, I'm really sorry because I'm driving, so I can't raise my hand or anything.
That's okay.
but
I
I have
recognize your voice. Go ahead.
I have a question to piggyback on to Jim's comment there. If Helen's if she's gonna try to answer him, and that is because I'm not able to see the visuals that she showed you guys. One, I have a question. When you talk about the region, what region is that? What region are we in? And then also, to you know, I don't really, what I could understand, it just doesn't seem like something that is hugely, that Westport has much of a, I don't know, it just don't seem like a great fit with our town for this at this point. We don't have a lot of buildings. We're not doing, we don't have a train. We don't have, I don't know. I was just trying to understand how Westport could work with this or really had any place in it.
Sure. Yeah, let me address a couple of points before we move on. So, yeah, I mean, Jim, to answer your question, so when I look at that $3,000 number, I also think like that's crazy. Like we can't do this inventory for a town for that. That's why I think it only really works if Serped proposes to be the kind of collector of that whatever data is readily available from those state and other similar sources. And then that 3,000 is like for just that local back and forth about, do you have, a green energy aggregation program? What's your municipal solid waste like? And, like I said, there are, if the answer isn't a quick yes or no, or just like if it isn't a quick answer and the answer is going to take crazy amounts of time to gather, one option is to kind of just use those statewide averages, to use the data sets that they suggest can be kind of, can sub in for a more kind of nuanced, exact local data set. And we could also space it out over time. I mean, the REPA cycle is 2 years, right? So it does give us a lot of time to say, like, let's touch base about this once a quarter. Like, we don't need to come in just and dominate, the staff time for those staff in Westport at all. And then I'm so sorry I missed your name, but for the telephone call, I think, yeah, I mean, in comparison to maybe a city that has a port or, like a place that has major emissions, it might not be a fit for Westport, but every community has residential buildings and cars and roadways and all these things that do cause greenhouse gas emissions and an agricultural sector. So just these things that, each one of us is an emitter, right? And if we're trying to get a handle of what the kind of aggregate scale is of that in any given town, I don't think it's an unworthy task, but is it a priority? And if it's not in Westport, no pressure. I'm not here to pressure you guys.
So let me, Helen, we've got a big agenda.
Yeah.
Let me suggest this. Michael has said that the planning office hasn't had time to look at this. And we're fortunate in that we have a very good relationship with Serped, and Serped is a tremendous asset for Westport. And Jim Whiten has been involved in Serped since the turn of the century. And I don't mean 2000. I mean, he's been there from the beginning. So we're very fortunate to have this relationship with Serped, and it's a great asset for Westport. And we're next on the agenda is, I think, Michael walking us through another couple of grant opportunities that we have before us. And having, the town meeting fresh in my mind from a couple of days ago, and select board member Shauna Schufeld's cautionary advice still ringing in my ears about the hard choices that may be before us. We may have to say no to a lot of things. Because, as Jim Whiten said, the amount on the plates of everyone who works for the town, not just the planning office. So I think what I'd suggest is that Michael, Amy, Nadine, think about this in the context of all the other opportunities, a couple of which we're just about to hear from, and the other things they're working on, and that this be on the agenda for the next meeting of the CRC. Is this something we want to pursue, or is this not one of the opportunities? Because there are more opportunities, as Jim Whiten said, than we can grab. So we're going to say yes to some, we're going to say no to some. Which side of the ledger does this fall on? But we do appreciate, Helen, that you put these before us so that we can look at them because they are important. And so we thank you for that. And we thank you for always keeping Westport in mind as you think through these things. We really do. So if that's okay with people, then, and there's a comment from Lauren. Wonderful presentation, Helen. I think Lauren speaks for a lot of people on our committee. Thank you for that. And so unless people object, I don't see hands raised. I'd like to get on to the next part of the agenda, which is grants update, which I think, Michael, are you giving that?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, there were some hands up. I don't know if you want to call on any of them, or I think Ray had his hand up.
Oh, sorry, Ray, you got your hand up. Fire away. Ray's image just went dark. Maybe I didn't call on him.
He might have stepped away for a minute, so I'll just get started and then we can come back, I guess. So I'll add an item here that wasn't initially on the agenda, and that's the applications that we submitted to the Buzzards Bay National Estuaries Program. If you all remember, we submitted 2 applications, one for assistance with our MS4 program. That's our municipal separate storm sewer system program, which is basically for monitoring and analysis of stormwater discharges for pollutants. And we also applied for a community nitrogen reducing wastewater system at the LET, and we prepared that with Buzzards Bay. Unfortunately, both of these did not receive funding. With the MS4 project, they wanted some more. It didn't compete well against some of the other applications because MS4 is the project activities are more monitoring based, and they funded some more action oriented projects. And then for the LET, it just didn't rank competitively with the other applications that had been submitted. The good news is that there will be a second funding round, and there should be about $700,000 in additional funds available. And so we'll have a second go at both of these. They did encourage us to apply for both. So we'll see what happens with that. We'll be able to, we've gotten feedback and we'll revisit the applications and make improvements and resubmit. And so just so everyone knows, the request for the project at the LET was $300,000, and the MS4 was significantly smaller. It's just a $25,000 grant. So we'll give those another shot. Okay, so back to the regular agenda items. We're going to be submitting an application to the MVP 2.0 program. So that this grant program is, the purpose of it is for us to revisit our climate resilience priorities that were developed in the previous, the first MVP that David Cole and others had prepared about 5 years ago. I think it was around 5 years ago. And we'll also be doing some more community outreach as a part of this process with a focus on populations not frequently represented in the planning process. So there's a significant equity component to this program, and they would definitely be trying to do outreach in Westport's environmental justice community. And so the funds for this portion of the grant program's $45,000, and that would go towards selecting a vendor to help out with those project activities. Then as a second component to this program, you automatically get $50,000 in seed grant money that you can put towards an action project. And so the current thought right now is to use that $50,000 seed grant as assistance for developing our climate resilience plan. But I'll say that I just want to encourage the committee to keep an open mind about what those funds could be used for. There could be other priority items identified through the planning process and the first phase of this program. And so I just want to encourage everyone to be open to those opportunities if they arise. So this will be submitting in a couple of weeks. I think we have a pretty good shot at it. We were encouraged by our rep for the program, Courtney Roca. She's also a member of this board, to apply. They're prioritizing communities by how long it's been since they first submitted their MVP grants or applications. And Westport was one of the first communities. So I think we have a pretty good shot here. And if there's any questions or comments about this.
David Cole has a question. Could the funds be used for outreach?
Yeah, so that's the 45,000. That is a core component of the project, is to do outreach with those funds.
Any other questions? Jeff, do you have a question?
Yes, Mike, I had been monitoring the MVP until recently, and I hadn't seen information about the release of the RFR, but I see that it is out now, so I will take a look at it. Am I correct? It's due approximately 2 weeks from today?
It is, yeah.
Okay. So if you'd like any help on that, I'm more than willing to jump back in and take a look at it with you. Just let me know. I know it's it sounds like a very viable opportunity for us, so I want to make sure that you get whatever help you need.
Sure. Yeah, I've got some materials prepared, and I can forward that to you. I have a couple of support letter requests out as well. I've got them reached out to the Westport River Alliance, and they gave us one. I have one from the food bank and another one, hopefully from Buzzards Bay Coalition.
Lauren, you have a comment, which I'm going to let you speak for yourself.
I'm just going to suggest that really play up this underserved community component, Michael, that you mentioned in the beginning. When I look at who was involved in the original plan, it didn't encapsulate the whole community, and it had a lot of people that were involved in the environmental community, but it didn't include a lot of community members. So I think that's a really important component of your proposal.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I'm making sure to note in this application is actually when we were working and looking at applying for the regular MVP program, we had a lot of difficulty trying to find a representative from Westport's environmental justice community. So I think that's something that I will play up in the application, that we need some assistance with and training and doing that outreach and engagement with that community. So yeah, you're spot on with that.
And if I can underline that, Lauren, that is one of the reasons we've been turned down in other grant applications. So you're spot on, but also I would ask members of this committee if you can be helpful to us in that area. Please contact Michael or Amy with people or areas or project ideas that help us in that area, because it is and has been a weakness, as you have pointed out, Lauren. So thank you very much for making that comment. Are there other questions or comments? All right. Thank you, Michael. Anything else on grants update, Michael?
Yeah, so we're...
I have a question.
Yeah, Constance, go ahead.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, you're asking for help with identifying environmental justice community segment, and can you tell us who has been identified? I mean, like, where is our environmental justice segment here? Where do you look? Who are they? I'm
Yeah.
sorry, but you know, what are we talking about specifically? Could you like?
All right,
Who's
we've
the
got your
person?
question. We've got your question.
Okay.
I'll let
I
Michael
feel
answer.
silly asking it.
Well, just
No, that's a
let
that's
a
a good
response come.
That's a good question, Constance. So Westport's environmental justice community is a community. If you can imagine this, it is bounded by Route 6 to the north, Sanford Road to the west, Route 88 to the east, and 177 to the south. So it's a community that is it's Westport's lowest income community. It has an average income that's, I think, 60% that of the state average. It has an aging elderly population. And this is also an area where there are high levels of bacterial contaminations in the wells and PFAS contamination in their wells. So for, collects a whole set of those reasons, it's identified as an environmental justice community by the state of Massachusetts.
Thank you, Michael, very much. Now, I think I saw a question from David Cole, but his hand has been lowered. All right, let's move along. The next item on the agenda are the minutes from March 9th.
Jen, sorry to interrupt. I just had one last item.
Yep, go ahead.
Here. So we've been in a couple of meetings recently between Buzzards Bay Coalition with Hallen from SERPED and Jim Whiten and myself and Amy, looking into potentially applying for a coastal resilience grant. SERPED has generously offered free assistance to help out with some grant applications for more environmentally related grant applications. And so this is one area that I've identified that we could potentially collaborate on. And so some backstory on this, the harbor master and shellfish wharfinger departments are looking into dredging, I believe, near the harbor. And so instead of dumping these materials out somewhere, we're interested in seeing if we can use those dredged materials elsewhere in the town. And so we've kicked around the idea of using those dredged materials for beach nourishment at East Beach, and using those materials as potentially for a demonstration salt marsh restoration project. Still in very preliminary phases of working these things out. We still have to meet with the harbor master to see if we can coordinate this, but it's something that's being considered. Sorry, there
So,
some comments, but-
Lauren asked about deposition. I think that's what you're talking about with marsh restoration, isn't that correct? Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any questions on that or anything anybody wants to add before we move on? Yeah, Jim Whiten.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what Michael was saying about what to use for the dredge material that could be generated from dredging is to put it on West Beach as well. So West Beach, east of the state beach, where it's getting more cobbly all the time. And if you put it there, over time, it'll migrate east. And it'll take a long time to get back into the harbor as opposed to what we did last time. So I think that's the two areas for beach nourishment.
Jake McGuigan, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I think the concern on some of that beach nourishment, as we see in East Beach, you can talk to us on conservation and Chris Capone on that. I mean, people come in and try to do beach nourishment in East Beach, and it lasts basically one storm and it's gone. So I would caution the use of that over on East Beach, especially given that East Beach, the environment now is basically a cobble. It's not a sand-based, nourishment. Other places along would be great. I mean, most of it's probably Baker's Beach sand and State Beach sand anyway. That's out there because we all have discussions on whether it's gooseberry causing that. I agree with Jim putting it over there towards the State Beach, but I just don't know how long it's going to last over there. It's,
It's not going to last forever, but neither am I or you. So, I mean, it's an interim thing, and it's something that you probably have to redo every time you dredge.
All right. Thank you.
I just want to weigh in and say, if you're not reading the chat, it's going to be the cheapest to transport that sand to the closest location to where it's dredged. And since the Westport River marshes there's scientific data that they're sinking and that they are disappearing, that I think, especially if you wanted to use some sort of federal funding, they would look upon that more favorably. And then how would you move that sand? And then that sand would just disappear, whereas you'd have some long lasting results with thin layer salt marsh deposition, which is a proven, I think, Jim, you were at that presentation when we had that at Allen's Pond. It's a proven method to help the loss of salt marshes.
Yes, we had a long,
Correct.
detailed presentation at our meeting in March on that.
Yeah.
So,
But the issue is that right now, it's not legal to do in Massachusetts.
I don't want to have the presentation we had in March over again at this meeting.
Right.
But
People can, if that's all right, it's in the minutes, which we're about to look at and I hope approve. But
Here.
yes, you're
Chris-
right. That's why we discussed it 2 months ago.
I just want to answer Jeff's question really quick. So yeah, there will absolutely be permitting issues for the salt marsh deposition. So we'll see how it all shakes out, even if we can coordinate it or not. Like I said, we're just kicking around the idea right now. So we'll see what happens.
Anything else on grants?
That's it.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is the minutes from March. Again, thank you, Amy, for they're very thorough. I didn't find any mistakes, but that's just me. Did anyone else find any errors, omissions, mistakes, misspellings, anything else? If not, is there a motion to accept the minutes of March 9th?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Mike Sullivan seconded. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? They're approved.
Aye.
Okay, now we get to subcommittee reports, engagement and fundraising. Who's given that report? David, Jeff? Who's given that report?
I don't have much to add. I think we've already heard from Michael where things stand on grants. And I don't know that but I'll turn it over to Jeff. He's been much more engaged in it than I have.
No, the only thing I have is I wanted to bring your attention to a outreach opportunity with the Watershed Association at River Day, which is going to be June 24th coming up. They do have vendors and exhibitors as part of their celebration of the river. And we have been offered the opportunity to have some kind of presence there. The question is, what do we present? How do we present it? I kind of feel, we're at the point where this committee could use some branding and some basic table banner that we could take when we want to, engage with people. I think those kind of opportunities will be available to us, but we haven't so far done anything. And obviously there would be some costs involved in getting ourselves ready for that. So I don't know if that's a priority engagement opportunity that we want to put on our put on the map for us, but I think it's a good opportunity.
Okay, Jeff, you also, in the minutes, it mentioned that you were working on a grant opportunity with the middle high school and you were going to report on that at this meeting. What,
Yeah, when a few of us met with the high school, we did let them know about the opportunity with the Buzzards Bay Coalition, a small grant program.
okay.
And one thing that was discussed that kind of got their interest was applying for a grant to have the students go out and do some interviews with people about climate change and kind of capture that content for us that we could use in engagement. There were some ideas of talking to local business people, agricultural folks, fishermen, etc. But I don't think the school went forward with any kind of application on that.
Yes, okay. I agree with that, and that's a shame because we had a vote actually at that meeting to endorse it, and it looked promising, and they never followed through, which is a shame. I do want to, but I see you. Hold on a sec. Lauren asked, she missed, she wasn't aware of the meeting in March and was interested in the discussion we had in March on the thin layer deposition and wanted to know if that could be viewed. Now, we record these meetings. Are those available for someone who wants to view that presentation, Amy or Michael?
Yes. So if the presentation was presented on the meeting, then it is on the Climate Resilience website under.
Okay, so the answer is yes. David, you have your hand up.
Well, just following on the discussion about the schools. Jeff prepared a really excellent proposal. I'm getting feedback from somewhere. Anyway, he prepared an excellent proposal that was submitted to the schools. But I think in the meeting we had, most of the students we met with were seniors, and they were focused on which college they were going to get admitted to and where they were going to go next. And there was only one lower classman in the group. And so they didn't pick up on it. So we tried, and we had 3 of our stars out there to talk to them, and we presented them a fully crafted proposal, and they didn't pick up on it. So we'll keep trying. I think we need to go back to meet a new group in the fall. Hopefully we'll get more mixed classes and try to build on that. So, but Jeff really put together an excellent proposal that we maybe can follow up on next fall. Thank you.
John, now you're muted.
Next item is water. Mike, I know you've been incredibly active. Thank you for your leadership.
I won't spend a lot of I can feedback too. I'll try to ignore it. We had 2 meetings, I think, since we last met as the top level committee here. And just to revisit, I think that we had the Sam White and Jim's cousin present at the water subcommittee. He did a presentation for us. Now, did he also present for the larger committee that I missed?
No.
Okay, so we didn't, that meeting wasn't recorded, but we do have pretty extensive minutes regarding his discussion. And I can send those along again. I'll send them to you, John, and you can distribute them. Where we stand on the water subcommittee is as I mentioned before, we've decided to come up with an initial state of the state report, if you will, on where Westport stands with regard to all of these global warming threats, be it, climate change, sea level rise, warming oceans. There's about 6 different tenets of global warming that we have examined and how it might hurt us from a, quote, water perspective, shoreline properties, wells, septic systems, and all that. So the report is, I think, coming along pretty good. We're probably about 70% there. We've just sent out assignments to some of the members to finish up on different sections, but I think it's going to take us another couple of meetings to finish up a report, which we'll submit to this committee. To just touch upon the salt marsh for a minute, it's that was an excellent presentation that Sam gave us, both about the techniques and technologies and processes that are out there to try to preserve salt marsh areas that are becoming more inundated more often and are effectively drowning because of sea level rise. We may not be the greatest candidate for thin layer deposition for a couple of reasons. Jim mentioned already, somebody mentioned that, first of all, it's not even a permitted process right now in Massachusetts. Can do a pilot project, but even if before we would do a pilot project and try to gather support for that, you'd probably want to do a very small experiment on a smaller area. That's one issue. Second issue is that, at the watershed, we've got a pretty extensive study going on as to why these marshes, specifically why they're dying. And we've been measuring inundation time for 8 of 10 different sites that we have where we've actually studied the marsh, have elevations, we have tide gauges there. And we're just pulling the data together from last year. But I can tell you that one of the things that we're finding is that the inundation is not that much different. Well, marginally healthy marshes in the lower reaches of the river as compared to healthy marshes in the upper reaches of the river. The inundation time is not, it's significantly different, but it's not crazy difference. The big thing is the velocity of the water near the marsh, passing by the marsh. This is a big factor in eroding away the leading edges of the marsh. So what that also means is that when the marsh is inundated, there's velocity over the marsh, there's movement over the marsh. This is one of the problems. So again, this is a little early. We're a little early in having this discussion, but I'm just trying to share some of the preliminary information with you folks. It may be that one of the major reasons that these marshes in the lower reaches of the river are failing is because of their inundation time and the water going over them, washing away or not allowing them to accrete vertically with sea level rise. That being the case, they may not be the greatest candidates to layer stuff on without some type of way to, keep it from washing off. So it remains a question. It's not a definite no, it's not a definite yes. It's an area of further study that we need to go into. I think that's it for me as far as key items ahead of hopefully delivering a report to folks in the next couple of months.
You're right, Mike. First of all, I can't keep my meeting straight. That excellent presentation on deposition was in your subcommittee meeting, which isn't recorded. So we can't get Sam's excellent thing on video, but your excellent notes are there for people to look at. So thank you. And your being able to go through the process of identifying dozens and dozens of threats, narrowing it down to 6 or 7, figuring out what we do, writing it up and getting it out to us is really setting an example, I think, that's helpful to other subcommittees in terms of, here's a model that other people can use. And they can choose to do something different, or they can say, oh, this is a good model. Let's look at that too. So thank you again for and the members of your committee for pressing on the way you do.
Thank you, John. But I'd like to say one thing that got a little bit of a catalyst from the health subcommittee, because they did a nice little report on a very focused threat that they have and some suggestions on how they're going to deal with it. So kudos to Phil for that.
All right. I don't know. Do we have anyone from infrastructure? I don't see Bob Dale or so I don't know that we have a report from infrastructure. So why don't we move to health? Phil, how's your health?
Very well, Joe. Thank you for asking. Go ahead. So the health committee as a committee has been pretty quiescent, if I'm saying that correctly. I know Mike Yogman has been doing some stuff on the mental health part of it. The health committee's initial focus was around extreme heat days, and we haven't seen many of those. So the thing that I'm next
El Nino is coming, Phil. El Nino is coming. We'll
So the next thing that I'm looking kind of towards was my understanding that the town had applied for a grant to update our emergency management plan. And I think that is an opportunity for the health committee and the health subcommittee and the infrastructure subcommittee and the water committee, to think about how that plan should reflect the potential impacts from flooding and dislocation, et cetera, that are not really addressed now as thoroughly as they should be. So that's something that if that happens, then I think the committee and the Board of Health will be involved in.
Okay, thank you.
John, I have a quick comment about that. So we applied to the hazard mitigation grant program, which is about identifying the hazards, natural hazards to the town of Westport, and the strategies for preventing loss in life and property through either built environment, public policy, whatever. That is a precursor to the emergency management planning grant. And so hopefully we'll get this one. It seems like FEMA is very delayed in releasing decisions on those grant applications because I think they were anticipated like 3 months ago. So that remains to be seen. I feel like feel good about it because it was actually the state, Massachusetts, applying for a batch of communities. But I will let you all know when a decision is made about that.
Thanks, Michael. The next item on the agenda is agriculture, and I think Ray had to cut out, and he was probably raising his hand so he could give his report before he had to leave. I don't think there's been a meeting between our last meeting and today. I did stop by his place today to talk with him, and we have established next meeting date for the Ag Subcommittee, which will be May 18th at 6 p.m. He likes to have the meetings in person, so it will be at Town Hall. I emailed Mike and Amy so that they would get that posted. I know we have a few people here, Joseph Inglesby, and there may be others who are on that subcommittee, so you can take note on that now. He was we had a pretty good turnout the last meeting at Town Hall. I think we had about 8 people. on the ag subcommittee. So that was very encouraging. So, you know, I'm a little worried as we get, you know, into May and the summer, it may get a little more difficult for working farmers to meet. But the last meeting was a really good introduction for the ag committee. He's going to try and get Ray Elias to take more of the load off of Ray, because he, as he said, Ray Elias is more retired. So that is the report from Ray Raposa on agriculture. If there are questions, I'll try and answer them, but I'm not sure how well I'll answer them. Any questions? Don't see any hands up.
I was just gonna
Yeah.
pipe in. Hi, I'm Madeline.
Oh, yeah, Madeline, you were there.
I was, and I was just gonna pipe in and say I think there is a definite sort of movement among the younger farmers and agricultural community. It sounded like both at that meeting and then at some follow-up meetings we had a couple days later at the Dartmouth Grange. A lot of them are applying for some of those FEMA climate resiliency mitigation grants, and CMAP is doing a lot of work to help coordinate and help farmers sort of figure out how to do that. And so I think it's a real sort of captive audience to help propagate any kind of climate, you know, advocacy forward amongst that group. So
Can I just use this forum just to pass on what I found was impressive information? So there was recently a report that was issued by the Massachusetts Association of Conservation Districts. And they ran a pilot project with 6 Westport farmers that was facilitated by the Agricultural Commission. And as a result of doing, you know, a series or a montage of manure management and operating projects, they reduced nitrogen pollution from primarily, you know, the animal husbandry by 23 tons a year that are not going into the Westport River, which is about 2/3 of the total amount of nitrogen that was estimated. I mean, 1/3 of the total amount of nitrogen that was estimated in the integrated report that was being contributed by farms. So it was an extremely impressive outcome. And I'm just spreading the word about it because I just recently found out about it myself. So
we do have to spread the word. That is a really good news, and people need to know about that. Jim White, you have your hand up. Before Jim, you speak, Maddie, I'm very happy that you were part of that ag subcommittee. If you want, and you joined here late, at the beginning of this meeting, we mentioned if people want to be official members of the CRC, you don't need to be in order to be a member of the subcommittee. But if you do want to be an official part of the Climate Resilience Committee, let us know, and we can recommend you to the select board. So let us know that. Jim White. You're muted, Jim.
I just wanted to add to Phil's discussion about the report from the, what was it? The Conservation Commission group in Massachusetts. And if you look at the TMDL, the Targeted Integrated Water Resource Plan, it outlines what the cost to remove a kilogram of nitrogen that goes into the river. And if you sewer, it's like $2,500 a kilo. This report, when you do the arithmetic, it was less than $12 a kilo. So if you want to get the bang for your buck, you know where that is.
Great point, Jim. All right, that completes the thank you all. The next is open meeting law, other business, forms and reappointments. Michael, Michael Burris, are you gonna walk us through that?
I will, yeah, but Joseph Ingoldsby has a comment before.
Oh, sorry. I just noticed that. Sorry, Joseph, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that I was
Yep.
at the meeting and the agricultural meeting. And what I found is that I had a very narrow parameter for agriculture. And so what I suggested is I expand it from not only crops and livestock to take a look at forestry, nursery operations, aquaculture, fisheries and shellfishing in town, to cast a wide net in terms of how you define agriculture, because I think all of those are practiced in this town and should be maybe put under a magnifying glass and involved in this discussion. So thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. That is a decision for the subcommittee, how they define themselves, but I think that's a good point to be considered by that subcommittee. You'd get no argument from me on that. Michael Burris, you want to walk us through the open meeting law and the other stuff you've got under other business?
Sure. So recently we've had some concerns about the town's compliance with open meeting law. So we just want to make sure we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's. So everyone who term expires, which I think is just about everyone here, we can communicate off this call. But most of the terms will expire June 30th. So just make sure you get sworn in at the clerk's office by that time. And then there's also an open meeting law certificate that we have to maintain on file for, I believe, 5 years for everyone on the committee. And so I emailed that out previously. If you still need it, feel free to shoot me an email and I'll send it back to you. It's just your signature saying that we provided open meeting law materials to you and that you understand what they mean.
So let me ask, have you communicated with everyone whether they are officially signed up and whether they have already complied, so people know their status on both of those things?
I don't think the certificates have been collected ever. I have one from you and Michael, I think Michael Sullivan. I think he sent me one. Yeah. So I have one from the two of you. And then as far as folks getting swear in, I believe most terms for almost all the members, their terms expire at the end of June 30th. So reappointments are due then.
So so everyone has to get reappointed. So what's the most efficient way to do that?
You have to go to the clerk's office to get sworn in.
Okay. Jim White and Phil Weinberg and Michael Sullivan. So Jim first, then Phil, then Mike.
I believe we could ask Shauna, but I think they all have to be reappointed by the select board.
Yes,
Mhm.
so the select board is in the process of getting all the appointments together so we can do mass appointments because like every committee expires on the 30th. So Paula is coordinating that. So I think really the easiest thing is if you are not interested in resuming your work on the committee, please let us know. And then maybe, if Amy or somebody can get a consolidated list of all the people who want to keep going, the select board is just going to blanket approve a bunch in a few weeks.
All right. So while we've got a lot of people here, is there anyone who's not inclined to keep going? All right. I don't see anyone. So of the people in attendance here, we're going to assume you all want to keep going. You are gluttons for punishment. Thank you all very much for that. And Amy will circulate the list of those present, and she will reach out to the people not here who are current members, you know, the Bob Dalers and others who are members but not here now, to confirm, and then she will make one list for the select board so that Shauna and colleagues can do a mass reappointment. And at that point, once the select board does that one vote, then it will be incumbent on us, one at a time, to go to the town clerk and get sworn in, right? Okay. Yeah, Michael.
John, I just have a question. My audio wasn't turned on when I first got on the call. Did we have a motion to recommend appointment of Joseph Inglesby to the board or committee?
Oh, I didn't know we needed that. So let's do that right now. Is there a motion to approve Joseph Inglesby to the CRC?
So motion.
Second.
Moved by Michael Sullivan, second by Sean. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Joseph, welcome. Boy, you look different, Joseph, now that you're an official member. There's something about you, Joseph, now that you're an official member, that you just seem to look different. Michael Sullivan, you have your hand up.
Just two suggestions for you, John, and for Shauna. We have, as members of committees, I think we have to watch a video and answer questions on conflict of interest, and then we have to sign a document on open meeting law. And obviously, you know, look over the materials for the open meeting law. I believe these things last 2 years. At least the conflict of interest thing last 2 years. I would suggest that this is a long-term problem, long-term committee. I would suggest that you ask the Board of Selectmen to make the appointments for 2 years. That way, somebody signs up, they get appointed for 2 years, they do their conflict of interest training, and they get their open meeting law material. I don't know how long. That one might be every year. I don't know. But that would simplify some of this, you know, administrative stuff that you have to deal with, John. And the other thing is, you know, I didn't have to worry about this as a selectman, but when I was the chairman of the Conservation Committee, I kept track of the 7 members, 6 other members, when they, you know, when they get their training done, when they, you know, somebody has to be the one to sort of prompt them. So I don't know, Michael, if you can check in with Kristen at the clerk's office and just get a list and send out reminders to the people that haven't got, you know, haven't done their training and haven't signed the open meeting law thing, and got sworn in.
And don't forget, people that we suggested tonight to be members are not members until the select board appoints them. They're not members yet. They have to go to the select board to get appointed and then go get signed in with the town clerk.
We can't even go to re-sign in until, you know, Shauna and the board write up all those recommendations, which is usually towards the end of the month here. So,
right,
or end of June. I'm sorry, right, Shauna?
I don't know when they're planning on doing it, but the next couple meetings they'll.
All right. Well, I hope Shauna will take under advisement that what I think is a good idea of 2-year terms.
I can ask the select board to do that when we're appointing it. That's no problem.
Yeah, as long as we're gluttons for punishment, why not just pile it on? So the shackles on our wrists get tighter and tighter. All right. Thank you for that, Mike. Is there any other business to come before us before we adjourn? The next meeting date We've been meeting every other month so that the committees can meet in the intervening month. So the next meeting date, if it's the second Thursday, would be July 13th. You know, that's the day before Bastille Day. I mean, I don't know whether people take long weekends or something, but on Bastille Day, but is that all right? July 13th? Okay, then we'll do 5 o'clock, July 13th. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion to adjourn, John, but I also make the offer, if you'd like, we could, we just conducted the water subcommittee meeting at the Watershed River Center up at the head. And we had a hybrid meeting, so people who couldn't attend in person were able to attend remotely. But it was nice to get some of the members together, albeit just a few of us. We did meet in person. So if you want to extend that offer or consider it for July.
What do you think, people? July, people are here. Want to do that? Thank you for the offer, Mike. Let's do that. All right. We will meet at the Watershed Alliance at the head of Westport at 5 o'clock, July 13th. Okay. See you all then. We're adjourned.